The stale air in Ryder Stone's cramped Ashbourne apartment felt thick as wet dirt in a grave. Outside the grimy windows, the factory town lay under a permanent twilight gloom. Ryder hadn't eaten in days, living on bitter coffee and the heavy fear that wouldn't leave. The letter from his mother, crushed in his fist, wasn't paper. It was a jagged piece of ice stabbing his gut. "Dearest Ryder," the familiar, looping writing began. "We have news that fills us with hope." Hope. The word tasted like burned ash. The hope was his sister, Delia, agreeing to marry Lucien Pryce. Just the name Pryce felt dirty in Ryder's mouth. Something he wanted to spit out. His mother, Evelyn, painted Pryce as their savior, a rich real estate man, liked by important people, their way out of being poor. Ryder knew it was all lies. Lucien was too busy to delay. "We knew you'd understand." Understand? Ryder's voice scraped out, harsh in the quiet. He saw the ugly truth they hid with hopeful words. Delia wasn't marrying for love. She was walking into a pretty prison, selling herself to buy his future. Pryce would pay for his dropped law degree, give him a job, a life raft tossed, while Delia drowned. His mother's weak excuse that Pryce was maybe a little rough screamed the truth. Evelyn always saw monsters as angels until they bit. Pryce's cheapness, sending their few things ahead, while making Delia and Evelyn take a long, awful bus trip, was a warning. A life counted in pennies, filled with sneers. Ryder saw Pryce at some fancy party, a cheap medal on his suit, playing the nice helper, while his eyes stayed cold and hungry, like a wolf looking at sheep. A cold, eating anger flooded Ryder. Delia, his smart, tough sister. She'd survived years working as a teacher for the awful Spudrigaylor family, coming out hurt, but not broken. She could live through hell, Ryder knew. But she wouldn't lower herself willingly, not unless it was a sacrifice for him. The thought hit him like a punch. His mother saw him, her broken golden boy. Now Delia was giving her life to fix him. They were chaining themselves with love, and Pryce held the key. He wouldn't let it happen, not while he breathed. Pryce could rot. But the anger turned into a thick, choking helplessness. How? He was a ghost in his own life, jobless, broke, living on the little money scraped from Evelyn's small widow's pension and Delia's pay. Money already owed to Pryce. His big plans to save them were just dreams in the dark. While he dreamed, they suffered. The old, bad thought, once just a nightmare, came back. What if there was another way? A final, bloody answer. Pressure built behind his eyes, a sick thump matching the dying beat of the town's factories. He couldn't stay trapped with his failures and Pryce's smug face. He needed air, even Ashbourne's poisoned air. He stumbled out into the heavy afternoon heat. The sky was a bruised purple, choked with dirty haze from the dead refineries by the river. He walked without aim, past boarded up shops and old for-lease signs, the street hot as a stove. His mind raced, pictures of Delia shrinking under Pryce's cold stare, his mother's weak hope falling apart. The cruel idea that some people must lose so others can win. Was Delia meant to be one of those lost people? He found himself on Bleecker Street, a lonely stretch of broken sidewalk lined with dead trees and empty warehouses. The heat pressed down. He saw an empty bench under a flickering, broken streetlight and moved towards it. Then he saw her, a girl, maybe 16, dressed in ripped fishnets and a crook sequin top that showed purple bruises on her shoulder. Her makeup was a smeared mess, tears cutting lines through the dirt. She wasn't walking, she was staggering, swaying like a broken doll. Her eyes were wide, not seeing anything real, lost in her own terror. The smell of cheap booze and something sharp and chemical hung around her. She fell onto the bench Ryder wanted, her head flopping back, spit trailing from her mouth. Ryder froze, a wave of sick pity fighting with disgust. This wasn't just drunk, this was something worse. Then he saw him, leaning against a wall covered in graffiti, about 30 yards away. A man, sharp grey suit, neat haircut, shiny watch. He looked wrong on Bleecker Street, like a vulture at a trash heap. His eyes, sharp and cold, were locked on the girl. Not worried, waiting for Ryder to leave. Rage, hot and pure, burned away Ryder's own hopelessness. This was Pryce's world, the strong eating the weak. He marched towards the man, his old boots crunching on broken glass. Enjoying the show, Spudrigaylor, Ryder spat, using the name of Delia's old tormentor like poison. The man's smooth look cracked, his face turned red. "What did you call me? Trash." He stepped forward, hands sliding inside his jacket. Ryder saw the shape of something heavy, maybe metal knuckles. A club. Energy surged. burning away his weakness. He ducked his head, ready to fight. Problem here. A calm, strong voice cut in. A cop stepped from a warehouse shadow. Officer Brennan, his Namatak said. 40s, tired eyes, looking like he'd seen it all. His hand rested near his gun. Ryder spun, pointing a shaking finger at the girl. Look at her. She's a kid, drugged or worse. And that, he jabbed a finger at the suited man, who now looked harmless and concerned, was waiting for me to leave so he could take her. Brennan looked from Ryder's wild eyes to the dandy's fake innocence, then at the girl. He walked to the bench. Miss, you hear me? What's your name? Where's home? The girl groaned, a low sound of pure fear. Her eyes opened, glassy and scared. No, please, the red room, it burns. Her voice was a broken whisper. She weakly pushed Brennan's hand away. Her torn clothes, the pattern of the bruises. Ryder felt sick. This wasn't new to her, but it was fresh. Someone had put her in this awful outfit after. Ryder dug in his pocket, pulling out a crumpled 10 and 2 5s, his last money. Here, officer, for a cab. Just get her home. Brennan took the money gently, his face softening with real pity seeing the child under the mess. We'll help her, son, but we need an address. Sweetheart, where do you live? Home. The girl let out a sharp, crazy laugh that turned into a cough. Ain't got one. Not anymore. They know. They always know. Her eyes rolled, seeing nothing. Suddenly, with a burst of wild energy, she shoved herself up. Just leave me alone, all of you, vultures. She stumbled away from the bench, weaving down Bleecker Street towards the dead riverfront. The suited man moved instantly, following her, keeping a careful space. Brennan sighed, putting his radio away. All right, I'll follow. Make sure he stays back, and she doesn't get hit. Probably end up at Mercia. He started after them. A wave of crushing uselessness hit Ryder, colder than before. The cop's help felt like fixing a chair on a sinking ship. This girl was already falling into a hole Mercia couldn't reach. He saw her future clearly. Shame, beatings from a desperate mother, the slow slide onto the streets, into the hands of worse men than the dandy. Another name lost, another percentage sacrificed. Officer, Ryder's voice cracked out, strange and loud. Brennan paused, looking back. Ryder forced a bitter, empty laugh. Forget it. Let them go. Let the vultures eat. What's one more? Brennan stared at him, confusion turning to distrust. You okay, son? Maybe head home. He shook his head, muttered waste of time, and kept walking after the girl and her shadow. Ryder sank onto the empty bench, the cold metal biting through his thin shirt. He'd lost his last $20. For what? To slow down a hunter for a minute, to hand a broken kid to a system that would crush her. Why try? What stupid idea made him think he could stop the rot? He was as weak as the girl on the bench. The image of Delia covered the stumbling girl. What if she became part of the percentage? Not on the streets, but in the golden cage of marriage to Lucien Pryce. A different death of the soul, just as final. The sacrifice she offered, her freedom, her peace, a right to choose for his future. It was evil, unthinkable. He needed something, someone. A name surfaced. Raz Fuller, his only friend from community college before he quit. Raz was everything Ryder wasn't. Loud, tough, built like a truck with messy red hair and the laugh that rattled windows. Raz worked 3 jobs, laughed at trouble, and was strong. Ryder had seen him knock out a big guard with 1 punch once. They hadn't talked in 4 months. Ryder had dodged him, hiding in alleys, eaten by shame. Why think of Raz now? What good was that force against the coming dark? A sudden, sharp noise broke his thoughts, not from the street, but from the rusty fire escape above. A loud scrape, like metal on stone. He looked up. Nothing, just old brick and growing dark. Ashbourne's shadows got deep fast. Then he saw it, partly hidden under the bench leg, under a crumpled burger bag. A small, fancy thing that shone dully in the fading light. Not trash, to neat. He bent and picked it up. It was a lapel pin, heavy silver, carved with a sleek, mean bird, a hawk or eagle, its claws gripping a tiny $sign. The design was sharp, new, coldly businesslike. He knew it. He'd seen this mark before. On the website for Pryce Holdings, Lucien Pryce's symbol. I shot through Ryder's blood. Pryce was here, in Ashbourne, watching. Or had the suited man been more than a random hunter? Was he tied to Pryce? Was the girl part of some deal? Some dark fun Pryce set up for his friends? The red room she mumbled about. Was it a place? A thing? The thoughts were terrifying, spreading like poison. Pryce wasn't just a greedy man. wanting to marry. He was part of the rot-eating Bleecker Street. He made money from it, maybe even controlled it. And Delia was walking blind into his world. The bad thought came back, not a nightmare whisper now, but a cold, sure fact. The dark idea he'd had, the answer that would free Delia, hurt Pryce, and break the cycle of sacrifice. It wasn't just a thought anymore, it was a plan. Pryce wasn't just a wall, he was the sickness infecting his family, and this dying town. Getting rid of him wasn't murder, it was cutting out a disease, a needed fix. He looked at the pin in his hand, the mean bird shining with evil purpose. It wasn't just a sign of greed, it was a target, a silent message left in the dirt of Bleecker Street, a dare. Ryder closed his fist around the cold metal, its edges digging into his skin. The thumping pressure in his head became one clear point. The helplessness burned off, replaced by a scary, sharp focus. He knew why he'd thought of Raz. He didn't need a friend. He needed a cover. He needed noise. He needed someone strong, true, and completely unaware. A thin, joyless smile touched Ryder's lips as he stood up. The shadows of Ashbourne seemed to grow thicker around him, pulling him in. He dropped the Pryce Holdings pin into his pocket, a cold weight against his leg. He turned away from Bleecker Street, not towards his sad apartment, but towards the part of town where Raz Fuller moved heavy things for work. The path was clear now, awful, final, but clear. The sacrifice wouldn't be Delia's, it would be his own soul, and Lucien Pryce's life. The game had just turned bloody. Ryder walked into the deepening gloom, the silver pin like ice in his pocket. He pictured Raz's loud laugh, his strong hands, his trusting eyes. Perfect. Raz wouldn't ask questions, not at first. He'd just be there, a solid wall of noise and presence, when Ryder needed someone seen with him, far away from where Pryce would meet his end. Ryder knew Raz had a temper, too. A little push, the right lie about Pryce hurting someone Raz cared about. Ryder could make that anger work, make Raz a tool, a living shield. The thought didn't make him flinch, not anymore. The cold in his chest was spreading. He walked faster, past the dead factories, breathing out their last sour breaths. Pryce was here, watching, waiting. Ryder felt eyes on his back, but when he turned, only the empty street stared back. The pin felt heavier. Had it been dropped or placed? He reached the loading bay where Raz worked. The clang of metal and Raz's booming shout echoed out. "Heave, you lazy sacks, that crate ain't gonna walk itself." Ryder stood in the doorway. Raz, sweat-soaked and huge, was wrestling a fridge onto a dolly. He saw Ryder, and surprise, then a wide grin, split his face. "Stone, holy hell, look what the cat dragged in. Thought you fell off the planet." Raz wiped his brow with a thick arm, leaving a grease smear. "You look like death warmed over, buddy. What brings you down to the pits?" Ryder forced a smile that felt like cracking ice. "Need to talk, Raz? Something big, something bad." He kept his hand closed tight around the pin in his pocket, its sharp point pressed into his palm. A promise, a price. He saw Pryce's cold eyes, heard the girl's broken whisper, "The red room, it burns." He saw Delia's brave smile fading. The cold inside him hardened into something unbreakable. He met Raz's friendly, concerned eyes. The first lie came easily. "It's about Pryce. He's done something terrible to someone we know." Ryder stepped into the noisy, grimy bay, the shadows outside swallowing the daylight. The game was set. The sacrifice had begun.